The Congo is a land where beauty and terror live side by side. Its jungles breathe with life, yet its ruins, rivers, and forgotten villages whisper with the voices of the dead, warning all who dare step closer. The ghosts of Kinshasa's abandoned palace, the Congo, with its dense rainforests, turbulent history, and deep spiritual traditions, is often described as a land alive with mysteries. It is also a land where the line between the living and the dead feels unusually thin. For centuries, Congolese culture has carried rich beliefs in spirits, ancestral presence, and the supernatural. Combine that with colonial scars, wars, and abandoned places left to rot in silence, and you find locations that feel not just haunted, but cursed. These are the places where even locals hesitate to tread, warning visitors that the spirits wandering there are restless. One of the most notorious is the abandoned presidential palace in Kinshasa, built under the regime of Mobutu Sese Seko. This palace was meant to be a symbol of power and extravagance, but it quickly became a monument to fear. Mobutu's reign was marked by corruption, executions, and rituals meant to tie political power to spiritual authority. Rumors say that within the palace, dark ceremonies were held, blending politics with occult practices. Guards whispered about screams that echoed through the halls at night, long after prisoners had disappeared inside. When Mobutu's rule collapsed in the 1990s, the palace was deserted. Today, the grand halls are overgrown with vegetation, the marble cracked, and the once luxurious rooms are silent. Yet those who dare enter report shadows moving along the walls, cold spots where the air turns icy in the equatorial heat, and whispers in languages they cannot identify. Some claim to hear footsteps following them through the corridors, though no one is there. Others speak of figures dressed in military uniforms, appearing for a moment before vanishing into the darkness. Local guides refuse to take people inside after sunset, warning that the spirits of those who were executed or tortured within the palace still roam its halls. For them, it is not just a ruin, it is a graveyard of power and suffering. Many believe the palace carries a curse, one that not only destroyed its master, but still lingers, poisoning anyone foolish enough to disturb it. This abandoned palace is not the Congo's only haunted place, but it captures perfectly why the country's haunted sites are so terrifying. They are not merely old buildings with creaks and drafts. They are monuments to violence, suffering, and history, where the echoes of human cruelty have invited something darker to take root. The haunted river port of Kisangani. The Congo River is often described as the heart of Africa, a powerful and untamable current that has shaped the destiny of entire nations. But while it provides life, trade, and transport, it has also claimed countless lives. Nowhere is this more apparent than the Kisangani River Port, one of the busiest trade points in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. This port, with its endless movement of goods and boats, is not just a place of commerce, it is also a place of death, a location haunted by the tragedies that have unfolded along the river's turbulent waters. For centuries, Kisangani has been known as a critical stop on the Congo River, connecting traders from the east and west. But with trade came suffering. During the colonial era, the port was used to transport rubber, ivory, and enslaved workers. Thousands died in the brutal exploitation overseen by King Leopold I's agents, and many of their bodies were tossed into the river to vanish without a trace. Locals believe the spirits of these victims still linger, wandering the riverbank in restless torment. Fishermen working at night often tell chilling stories. Some say they have seen ghostly figures rise from the mist, their clothes dripping as if they had just emerged from the water. These apparitions are said to stare silently before dissolving back into the fog. Others report hearing cries in the night, the sound of drowning men and women echoing across the current, even when no boats are nearby. The bravest fishermen still cast their nets, but they do so with charms and prayers, hoping to appease whatever forces claim the river as their own. More recent history has added new layers of tragedy. During Congo's brutal wars in the 1990s and early 2000s, Kisangani became a site of massacres. Rebel groups fought for control of the port, and civilians were caught in the crossfire. Survivors tell of bodies piling up along the docks, the river turning red with blood. Many of these victims, never given a proper burial, are believed to haunt the port to this day. Workers report tools being moved, crates shifting without explanation, and sudden chills even in the heat of midday. Perhaps the most terrifying stories come from those who claim to have heard voices directly. Dock workers say that sometimes, when standing alone on the riverbank, whispers float up from the water. These whispers sound like pleading, voices asking for help, for release, for acknowledgement. One man even claimed he saw the face of his dead brother staring back at him in the rippling water, only to vanish when he blinked. Since then, he has refused to return to the port at night. Local elders warn that the river is alive, not just with natural force, but with spiritual energy. They believe the ghosts of the Kisangani port are not malicious, but lost, endlessly replaying their final moments. Still, they caution that anyone who visits the site without respect risks being pulled into the current by unseen hands. To them, the port is not simply haunted. It is cursed, a reminder of the price of greed, war, and neglect of the dead. The phantom soldiers of Goma, on the eastern edge of the Congo, near the borders of Rwanda and Uganda, lies the city of Goma. It is a place overshadowed by Mount Nyiragongo, one of the most active volcanoes on Earth. But while the volcano looms as a constant natural threat, another kind of danger is whispered about in Goma's streets, the phantom soldiers, said to haunt the outskirts of the city. Goma has endured decades of violence. Rebel groups, militias, and armies have all fought for control of this strategic region. The First and Second Congo Wars left deep scars, with mass graves scattered across the volcanic plains. Soldiers and civilians alike were killed in ambushes, massacres, and chaotic battles. Many bodies were left unburied, consumed by the forest or swallowed by lava flows from Nyiragongo's eruptions. Locals say their spirits never found rest, and they now roam the land, locked in eternal battle. Travelers and aid workers have often reported strange encounters at night along the dirt roads outside Goma. Some describe hearing the rhythmic stomp of boots approaching in the darkness, only for no one to appear. Others say they have seen entire squads of soldiers marching silently, their uniforms torn and blood-stained, their eyes empty sockets. These phantom troops reportedly vanish when approached, dissolving into mist as though they were never there. More chilling still are the gunfire echoes. Residents speak of hearing bursts of automatic weapons in the middle of the night, followed by screams. When they rush to investigate, they find only silence. The jungle around them calm. These ghostly battles seem to replay the violence that once drenched the soil in blood. Some even claim to have seen flashes of light, as if muzzle fire were sparking in the distance, though no fighting is taking place. The volcanic landscape only adds to the atmosphere. Nyiragongo's constant smoke and sulfur smell mix with the cries of nocturnal animals, making it difficult to know what is natural and what is supernatural. But those who live in Goma swear that the apparitions are real. Drivers avoid certain routes at night, fearful of encountering ghostly roadblocks manned by dead soldiers. Others refuse to venture near old battlegrounds, saying the spirits of fighters still patrol them, attacking anyone who dares trespass. Psychologists might explain these visions as trauma manifesting in the minds of survivors. After years of war, it is natural for people to hear echoes of violence in the quiet night. But locals insist this explanation does not capture the whole truth. Too many have seen the same figures, heard the same phantom gunfire, and felt the same chills in places where thousands perished. For them, the land itself remembers, and it replays its horrors through spirits bound to their death. What makes the haunting of Goma particularly disturbing is the suggestion that the phantom soldiers are not just echoes of the past. but active presences. Some villagers tell stories of travelers falling ill after seeing the apparitions, as though cursed. Others claim that rebel fighters who camp near haunted sites suffer accidents or inexplicable losses, as if the dead are punishing the living for disturbing their rest. In Goma, the living fear war, but they also fear its ghosts. The phantom soldiers are reminders that violence leaves scars not only on bodies and buildings, but on the soul of a place. And in Goma, that soul is restless, marching forever through the smoke and darkness. The abandoned tunnels of Lubumbashi. Lubumbashi, the mining capital of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, is a city built on wealth wrestled from the ground: copper, cobalt, and other minerals that have fueled both fortune and misery. Beneath its surface lies a vast network of old mining tunnels, many of them abandoned, stretching for miles into darkness. These tunnels, carved by human hands under colonial rule and later exploited by Congolese regimes, are said to be among the most haunted places in the country. During the Belgian colonial era, miners were forced to work under brutal conditions. The tunnels were poorly ventilated, prone to flooding, and riddled with collapses. Thousands of workers died underground, suffocated by gas, drowned in rising water, or crushed by falling rock. Many bodies were never recovered, sealed forever in the earth as the mines continued to expand above them. Locals believe their spirits still wander, angry and restless, bound to the tunnels where they suffered. Today, these tunnels are mostly deserted, though some are still entered illegally by artisanal miners desperate for scraps of ore. Those who have gone in speak of terrifying experiences. Some describe hearing the clanging of pickaxes deep in the dark, though no other miners are present. Others report whispers echoing through the chambers, sometimes in forgotten languages, sometimes in screams that send men fleeing back to the surface. One miner told of a night when he and his companion saw a dim lantern glow moving ahead of them. Believing another miner was nearby, they followed, only to find the tunnel collapsed and no one there. The lantern light faded into the rocks, leaving them shaken. Another spoke of a hand gripping his shoulder from behind, cold and bony, though no one stood near him. Such accounts have spread through Lubumbashi, and many refuse to enter the old tunnels at all, believing they are cursed. There are also tales of entire groups vanishing underground. In one incident, a team of illegal miners entered an abandoned shaft and never returned. Search parties found no trace, no tools, no bodies, not even signs of collapse. Locals say the spirits of dead miners took them, dragging them into the earth as revenge for disturbing their eternal rest. Adding to the terror is the superstition that the tunnels themselves are alive, shifting and changing shape to trap the unwary. Survivors claim passages they once used suddenly sealed or rerouted, leaving them lost. This belief is fueled by actual collapses, but many insist the tunnels move with intention, as if guided by unseen forces. The abandoned mines of Lubumbashi are more than just historical scars. They are reminders of exploitation, suffering, and death. Every stone and wall is soaked in the memory of human misery. Whether or not the spirits are real, the fear of them is enough to keep most people away. For those who have entered, the tunnels are not merely haunted. They are a living grave, and every echo feels like a whisper from the damned. The cursed village of Kivu, deep in the forests of the eastern Congo, lies a village most people will not name aloud. Kivu, once a thriving community, it is now nearly abandoned, its huts collapsing, its fields overgrown. Locals say the village is cursed, haunted by tragedies that drove away nearly everyone who lived there. It is a place where silence reigns, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the occasional wail of unseen voices carried on the wind. The origins of Kivuvu's curse go back generations. Elders tell of a massacre during the colonial era when soldiers descended upon the village, killing men, women, and children for resisting forced labor. The dead were buried in shallow graves, and their spirits, denied proper rituals, were said to rise in anger. For decades, villagers reported strange events: livestock dying without cause, children falling mysteriously ill, and ghostly figures appearing near the grave sites. But the curse grew darker in recent times. During the Congo Wars, Kivu was attacked again, this time by militias seeking to control the region. Survivors fled, leaving behind homes and farmland. Those who returned after the violence found the land barren. Crops refused to grow, water sources dried unexpectedly, and disease spread. Many believed the spirits of the massacred had finally claimed the land entirely. The few who remain in Kivu tell unsettling stories. At night, they hear drums beating in the forest, though no one is playing them. Some claim to see processions of ghostly villagers walking through the streets, carrying torches, their faces pale and empty. Others speak of voices calling their names, luring them toward the old grave sites. A handful have vanished after following the voices, their bodies never found. Travelers who pass through describe an oppressive heaviness in the air, as though the village itself rejects visitors. Birds go silent and animals refuse to enter. One account tells of a missionary who tried to re-establish the village, only to be struck by sudden fever and die within days. After that, even aid workers avoided Kivu, convinced that no human effort could lift its curse. The site has since become a place of fear, where even neighboring villages refuse to go. Hunters avoid the forests around it, farmers steer clear of its fields, and parents warn their children never to speak its name. For those who live in the region, Kivu is not just a ruined village, it is a wound in the land, forever poisoned by blood and betrayal. Some anthropologists suggest that the haunting of Kivu is a cultural response to trauma, a way for communities to process violence and loss. But to those who live near the cursed village, no explanation can erase the fear. They believe the spirits of Kivu are still restless, punishing anyone who dares to disturb their eternal vigil. The whispering forest of Ituri, the Ituri forest, sprawling across northeastern Congo, is one of the most biodiverse places on Earth. Dense canopies stretch for miles, broken only by hidden rivers and the paths of pygmy communities who have lived there for centuries. To scientists, Ituri is a treasure trove of rare plants and animals. To the people who dwell near its edges, however, it is also a place of deep unease. A forest alive with voices that should not exist. They call it the Whispering Forest, and they warn outsiders to enter only in daylight, never alone, and never without respect for the spirits said to live among the trees. Legends say that the forest is haunted by the spirits of hunters who perished within, their souls trapped between the trees. Others believe it is the site of ancient rituals gone wrong, where shamans called upon forces too powerful to control. Whatever its origin, the forest has earned its reputation for unnatural sounds. Travelers tell of walking along narrow paths and hearing their names whispered from the branches above. The voices are said to mimic the tones of loved ones, tricking people into straying off the trail. Those who follow the whispers often vanish, their bodies never recovered. Hunters claim they have seen pale figures moving silently through the trees, taller than men and cloaked in shadows. Some describe them as ancestral spirits, others as malevolent entities that feed on fear. The forest itself seems complicit. Paths that once led home suddenly twist into unfamiliar clearings, as if the land reshapes itself to trap the unwary. Even seasoned guides admit they feel watched, describing moments where the air grows thick and heavy, and the trees themselves seem to lean inward, closing them in. One chilling story tells of a group of loggers who entered the Ituri despite warnings. They ignored the rituals meant to appease the spirits and set about cutting trees. Within days, strange things began to happen. Tools went missing, food spoiled, and at night the men heard laughter echoing in the dark. Then one of the loggers disappeared. His body was never found, but his voice was reportedly heard in the forest for weeks afterward, calling for help. The surviving men fled, abandoning their work, convinced that the forest had claimed him. Modern visitors, scientists, conservationists, and soldiers during the wars have also reported eerie experiences. Soldiers claimed to hear drums in the distance that faded whenever they tried to locate the source. Scientists spoke of equipment malfunctioning inexplicably, compasses spinning out of control, and strange lights flickering in the distance at night. While skeptics argue these are natural natural phenomena, echoes, animal calls, swamp gases. Locals remain certain the forest is haunted. The ruins of Stanleyville's Mission Hospital. Stanleyville, now known as Kisangani, was once a showcase of colonial ambition in Central Africa. Among its most imposing structures was the Mission Hospital, built in the early 20th century. It was meant to symbolize progress and civilization, but for many Congolese, it represented something far darker: exploitation, cruelty, and death disguised as medicine. Today, the hospital lies in ruins, consumed by vines and silence. And those who venture inside speak of horrors that linger long after the buildings collapse. During its operation, the hospital was a place of fear for locals. Missionaries and colonial doctors conducted experiments under the guise of treatment. Patients often entered for minor ailments and never returned. Rumors spread of forced sterilizations, mysterious surgeries, and patients who were deliberately exposed to diseases for research. Many believed the hospital was less a place of healing than a laboratory of suffering. As Congo's independence movement grew, the hospital became a symbol of oppression. When violence swept through Stanleyville during the Simba Rebellion in the 1960s, the hospital was targeted. Doctors and patients were caught in the chaos, some killed on the spot, others abandoned as the building burned. It was never fully rebuilt, and over time, the jungle reclaimed its halls. But according to locals, the hospital's dead never left. Visitors describe the ruins as unnaturally cold, even in the humid Congolese heat. Those who step inside often hear faint moans echoing through the corridors, as if patients are still crying out for help. Others report the metallic smell of blood lingering in the air, though the walls have long since crumbled. Some claim to have seen ghostly nurses moving through the shadows, their faces hidden, their presence accompanied by the sound of clattering instruments. One story tells of a group of teenagers who entered the ruins at night, daring each other to explore. They described hearing footsteps following them, though they were alone. Then one of them screamed, claiming to have seen a figure lying on an old rusted bed frame, its eyes wide open, staring at him. When they returned the next day, the bed frame was empty, but the boy refused ever to set foot near the hospital again. What makes the ruins of Stanleyville's Mission Hospital especially chilling is the belief that its spirits are not passive. Locals insist they are angry, punishing those who enter. People who explore the ruins often fall ill afterward, plagued by fevers or nightmares. Some say this is coincidence. Old buildings harbor mold, snakes, and disease. Others believe it is the vengeance of the restless dead, still furious at the injustices committed within those walls. For the people of Kisangani, the hospital stands as a scar, a monument to suffering cloaked in the language of healing. Its ruins are avoided, not out of superstition alone, but out of respect for the victims whose voices still seem to echo through its halls. Even in decay, it is a place of fear, a reminder that some wounds never close and some spirits never forgive. The colonial train graveyard of Katanga in Katanga, the mineral-rich province of southern Congo. Remnants of colonial exploitation still dot the land. One of the most haunting relics is the so-called colonial train graveyard, a stretch of rusting locomotives and carriages abandoned along an overgrown railway line. Once used to transport copper, cobalt, and human labor across the region, these trains now sit in eerie silence, their steel frames corroded, their windows shattered. To passers-by, they are only relics of industrial decline. To locals, however, they are haunted, cursed by the souls of those who perished in and around them. During the Belgian colonial era, trains were the veins of Katanga's resource extraction empire. Workers were packed into overcrowded carriages, sometimes chained together on their way to the mines. Conditions were brutal, disease spread quickly, food was scarce, and punishments were severe for those who faltered. Many did not survive the journeys, and their bodies were unceremoniously discarded along the tracks. Survivors whispered of screams and prayers echoing through the train cars at night, a sound that some say can still be heard today. Stories of hauntings center on the abandoned carriages. Travelers who venture too close at dusk report hearing the rhythmic clatter of wheels on tracks. though the trains have not moved in decades. Others claim to see faint lantern lights flickering inside the carriages, as if spectral passengers still sit in darkness. On quiet nights, locals say the air fills with the sound of chains rattling, accompanied by moans that seem to come from inside the rusting shells. Some of the most terrifying accounts involve apparitions of colonial guards and soldiers. Witnesses describe seeing uniformed figures standing beside the trains, their faces obscured, their eyes glowing faintly. These figures vanish when approached, leaving only the oppressive feeling of being watched. Hunters who once camped nearby abandoned the area entirely after several nights of hearing what they swore was the sound of whips cracking and men crying out in pain. The graveyard is also linked to a chilling legend that those who disturb the trains risk joining their ghostly passengers. Tales circulate of treasure hunters who entered the carriages looking for hidden valuables, only to emerge days later feverish and incoherent. A few never returned at all. Villagers believe the trains claim anyone who tries to profit from them, punishing greed with disappearance. For many in Katanga, the train graveyard is more than a haunted site. It is a physical reminder of suffering disguised as progress. The spirits said to linger there embody the cruelty of a system that treated human lives as expendable. While tourists might see only rust and weeds, locals see a haunted monument to a dark past, a place where every piece of corroded steel carries a whisper of the dead. The blood-stained Cathedral of Mbandaka, on the banks of the Congo River in the city of Mbandaka, stands an old cathedral whose very walls seem to weep with history. To outsiders, it looks like another crumbling colonial church, its once white facade stained and cracked by decades of neglect. To the people of Mbandaka, however, it is known as the blood-stained cathedral, a place so haunted by violence that few dare to enter after dark. The cathedral was built in the late 19th century during the height of Belgian control. It was meant to serve as both a religious and political symbol, cementing colonial dominance through the cross as well as the gun. But beneath its vaulted ceilings, horrors unfolded. During uprisings against colonial authorities, villagers captured and accused of rebellion were herded into the cathedral. Many were executed on the very steps of the altar, their blood soaking into the stone. According to witnesses, priests themselves often stood by as soldiers carried out the killings, sanctifying violence in the name of order. Later, during Congo's post-independence conflicts, the cathedral once again became a site of massacre. Rebel groups stormed the building, slaughtering civilians who had sought refuge inside. Survivors described the floor running red with blood, bodies piled in corners, and the air thick with smoke and screams. Since then, the church has carried a reputation not of salvation, but of terror. Visitors who enter today speak of an atmosphere that is suffocating. Even in daylight, the interior feels dark, and the air carries the smell of mildew mixed with something metallic. Locals claim that at night, the cathedral comes alive with echoes of its bloody past. Candles flicker on their own, as though unseen hands light them. Parishioners have reported hearing phantom choirs singing hymns,